Have you ever heard of an object so mysterious, so controversial that it has baffled scientists and inspired believers for centuries? Today, we read journeying into the heart of one of history's most enduring enigmas, the Shroud of Turin. This ancient linen cloth, measuring about 14 feet long, bears the faint sepia-toned image of a man who appears to have been crucified. For millions, this is the very burial cloth of Jesus of Nazareth, a sacred relic that miraculously captured his image at the moment of resurrection. But for others, it's a masterful medieval forgery, an elaborate hoax that has deceived the faithful for generations. The question is, what does the evidence say? Join me as we uncover the secrets of the cloth linked to Jesus. The story of the shroud as we know it begins in the mid-14th century in a small town in France called Lyry. A French knight named Geoffroy de Charny presented the cloth for veneration, claiming it was the authentic burial shroud of Christ. Right from the start, it was controversial. The local bishop, Pierre d'Arcis, wrote a letter to the Pope declaring it a fraud, even claiming the artist had confessed. Despite this, the shroud's popularity grew. It passed through various hands, survived a fire in 1532 that left its distinctive scorch marks and water stains, and eventually, in 1578, found its permanent home in the Turin Cathedral in Italy, where it remains to this day. But its documented history only goes back so far. Where was it before the 1350s? Believers trace its path back through history, identifying it with other legendary relics like the image of Edessa, a holy cloth said to bear the face of Jesus. They point to artistic depictions of Christ from the Byzantine era that suddenly started showing features remarkably similar to the man on the shroud. Could this be a clue that the shroud was known and revered long before its official appearance in France? This gap in its history, often called the missing centuries, is one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle. The modern era of shroud investigation began in 1898 with a photograph that changed everything. An amateur photographer named Secondo Pia was given permission to take the first ever picture of the shroud. When he developed the glass plate negative in his darkroom, he was stunned. The faint image on the cloth was transformed. The image on the shroud was itself a negative. On his photographic negative, the man's features appeared in startlingly clear positive detail, a three-dimensional, lifelike portrait that no one had ever truly seen before. This discovery was groundbreaking. How could a medieval forger have created a perfect photographic negative centuries before the invention of photography? This single event ignited a new wave of scientific and public fascination that continues to this day. This brings us to the great scientific showdown of the 20th century. In 1988, the moment of truth seemed to have arrived. The Vatican authorized a radiocarbon dating test to definitively determine the age of the cloth. 3 world-renowned laboratories in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona were each given a small sample snipped from a corner of the shroud. The results were unanimous and shocking. They dated the linen to a period between 1260 and 1390 AD, precisely the time the shroud first appeared in France. The case seemed closed. The shroud was officially declared a medieval creation. The headlines were definitive: Shroud of Turin is a fake. But the story doesn't end there. In the years that followed, many scientists and researchers began to question the 1988 carbon dating. They pointed out that the sample was taken from a corner of the cloth, an area that had been handled countless times and was repaired by nuns after the 1532 fire. Could this sample have been contaminated with newer fibers from the repair, skewing the results? This theory, known as the invisible reweaving hypothesis, suggests that the labs dated a medieval patch, not the original cloth. Other researchers proposed that the intense heat from the 1532 fire could have altered the carbon-14 content of the linen, making it appear much younger than it actually is. While the labs that performed the tests stand by their results, these counter-arguments have kept the debate raging. The definitive gotcha moment of carbon dating turned out to be just another chapter in the mystery. While the carbon dating debate focuses on the age of the cloth, another branch of science was examining what was asterisk on asterisk the cloth. And what they found is just as mind-boggling. Chemical analysis has failed to identify any pigments, dyes, or brushstrokes. It's not a painting. The image is incredibly superficial, affecting only the topmost microfibers of the linen threads. It's as if the image was scorched onto the cloth with an impossibly precise burst of energy, and then there's the blood. The reddish-brown stains that mark the wounds of crucifixion are, according to many forensic pathologists, actual blood. Analysis has revealed the presence of hemoglobin and identified the blood as type AB, a common blood type in the Middle East but rarer in Europe. Furthermore, the patterns of the blood flows are medically accurate. They show separate flows from arteries and veins, the pooling of blood around the feet, and the flow of blood and pericardial fluid from the wound in the side, consistent with the Gospel account of a soldier piercing Jesus' side with a spear. For many, the idea that a medieval forger could possess this level of anatomical and forensic knowledge is simply unbelievable. So if it's not a painting, not a scorch, and not a simple photograph, how is the image formed? This is the central mystery of the Shroud of Turin. No one has been able to successfully replicate it. Scientists have tried everything from hot statues to various chemical processes, but nothing can reproduce all the unique chemical and physical properties of the image on the shroud. It contains three-dimensional information, encoded in the varying intensity of the image. When processed by a VP8 image analyzer, a device used by NASA to map planetary surfaces, the shroud image produces a stunningly natural 3D relief of a human body. A normal photograph or painting just produces a distorted mess. This 3D property is perhaps the most inexplicable feature of all. Some theories propose a burst of radiation or coronal discharge emanating from the body itself, a hypothesis that for believers aligns perfectly with the event of the resurrection. Beyond the science, the shroud holds immense cultural and religious power. For centuries, it has been an object of pilgrimage and prayer. It's more than just an artifact. It's a focal point for faith. Pope John Paul II called it a mirror of the gospel, describing it not as an object of proof, but as a profound stimulus for contemplation on the Passion of Christ. The face on the shroud has influenced countless artistic depictions of Jesus, shaping the very image billions of people have of him. Whether it's authentic or not, its impact on art, culture, and spirituality is undeniable. It forces us to confront the intersection of faith, science, and history. So where does that leave us? Is the Shroud of Turin a sophisticated medieval work of art, a forgery so brilliant that it continues to stump modern science? Or is it a silent, 2,000-year-old witness to the most pivotal event in Christianity? Every piece of evidence seems to have a counter-argument. The carbon dating says medieval. The image properties say impossible. The lack of historical records is suspicious. The forensic details are compelling. The shroud doesn't offer easy answers. Instead, it invites us into a profound mystery. It challenges our assumptions and asks us to weigh evidence against faith. Perhaps its true power lies not in providing a definitive answer, but in its ability to make us ask the big questions. What do you think? Is it the authentic burial cloth of Jesus, a medieval masterpiece, or something else entirely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on this incredible enigma. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Shroud of Turin. If you enjoyed this journey into history's mysteries, please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. Until next time, stay curious.